So now we are in week 8, and I've graded a good chunk of the exams. I'm not done with grading yet, so you'll have to forgive me. But I'm getting on that. I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to be having 2 late start classes starting in about a week. And so I'm going to have like 120 something students online, okay? And I want to be as accessible as I am to you right now, with no difference. But obviously there is a difference in my workload. I'm going to be working less at my other job, and I'm going to be spending more time from home or at cafes or wherever I'm grading. And basically, on the other hand, I'll be more accessible to you because I'm not going to be working so much at the child education center that I've been normally working at. Quite a bit in hours. But what I am going to need you to do is to be more, to clarify when you're texting me or leaving a message or sending me an email, to really make it clear who you are and which class you're in, because you know it's me, you're calling me. And your voice I may recognize. At the same time, some people have very similar voices and similar names at the same time. And it takes me a little bit of a time to kind of like acclimate and be like, all right, who do I have on the phone? Okay. I mean, that can happen to me now. It'll be interesting to see how, the next month or two goes. But I want to make sure, again, that you guys are feeling you have just as much access to me, if not even more. Now, I briefly want to say something about capitalizations, that I posted something in the announcement yesterday. I don't know why, and I'm see, how do I say this? Okay, look, I struggled with English, and I still do. I think sometimes my friends that are also academics are at times a little bit shocked about the way that I use language when I talk, and sometimes how I write, because I don't have the polish of an academic. And part of that problem is that I started late in life. I didn't go back to college till later, and I didn't do well in school. And so I went back to school, and I worked very hard, and I read a lot. And I'm not a train wreck when it comes to English grammar and spelling, but it's a challenge, and it's why I take it easy on you guys as well. But on one hand, I don't want to be a hypocrite, and I don't want to make well, the bottom line is that I need to help you guys rise up to the next level. Not simply say, oh, I sympathize with some of the things you're doing that are incorrect, and because I've been there. I need to help address it and get you guys out of it. This is a texting generation, and a lot of you will write coherent essays and send me material. That's fine, but it's almost like you're texting it. I mean, are you texting this? Okay, so like I'll say like Christianity. I mean, this is so many of you. Write Christianity with a small c. Write Rome with a small r. There's no small r Rome. Okay, there's no Romans with a small r. Okay, and some of you are second language learners, and that's more understandable difficulty. And some of you are late bloomers like I am, and that's also understandable. But whatever the case is, you guys need to get a handle on that for, just other things in life. So in my class, you can get away with this in terms of, I'm not taking off your points because you don't use capitals in the proper spots of your paper. But it's so noticeable right away, okay, that if you're going to transfer to a college, or you're going to write a resume or an email to a boss or something to do with your job, you've got to get a handle on that. That's an English issue to deal with, but I just want to address that to you because it's important, and I want you to understand the importance of that. And if it's going back to the writing center or doing whatever it takes, I want to highly recommend that you all do that if you need to, okay? So, having said that, not the worst issue in the world, but an issue that needs to be addressed. Okay? So this week's section, we kind of, the textbook hits on a certain timeline, and we go a little derailed off our timeline and slightly derailed off our subject of Western Civ. Okay, the documentary I have you watch on Islam goes all the way to covering the Renaissance, which we'll get to later. What I'm kind of hoping you to see, because it does complement this particular section, is we're not going to go into Islam in as much details in the other sections as we do right here. But I'm hoping that in this section, because we're going to see later the Ottoman Empire and so many other Islamic kingdoms are going to be in competition with Western European nations, that when the word Muslim or Islam comes to your head, you'll have something to attach it to some understanding. And that's what's going on here with this section, okay? And to show you that that Islam in the West has, for a long time, have shared ideas, even if both sides don't want to admit that, as I've talked about. The one thing that I want you to be careful about, just as I warned you in the past that to not look at the Israel-Palestine conflict through the lens of ancient Israel history that we learn, because there's some very modern, recent events that shape that conflict. I put it at the 19th century for that conflict for myself, which we're not covering in the section. While many Muslims may look to this past, a lot happens in the Islamic world since the time period we're covering. And I feel like it's a tendency that many people have a knowledge of Islam if you get educated in Islam, you often have it in the time periods that we're covering. But the so-called Islamic world in modern times was heavily influenced by nationalism, socialism, even communism. And the United States during the Cold War, and I think you've heard me tell this in other times, was more concerned about the Islamic world going socialist, nationalist, or communist even, which would favor the Russian sphere of influence, than they were worried about Islamic political movements. And in fact, this is why we actually helped fund or allowed Saudi Arabia's funding of Islamic political movements that we see now. And you'd be surprised in modern history how many ideas outside of Islam were influencing and seducing, if you will, countries that had an Islamic majority. Okay, now, anyhow, I'm going to leave that. So I'm hoping that you'll enjoy this. I also have something on the Rus and the Vikings, which you'll find interesting. And then next week, I'm adding some lectures on the Vikings that I didn't have in my previous classes because I have more knowledge now that I want to incorporate. But that's all I can think of for this week. And again, contact me if you want any clarification on anything. And here we go.